There are kids who learn the world is safe. They cry and someone comes. They need and someone provides. They trust and they're not betrayed. Those kids grow up believing connection is natural, that people are fundamentally good, that asking for help is just part of being human. Then there are kids like you. You cried and were told to toughen up. You needed and were called weak. You trusted and learned that people leave. Those kids grow up believing connection is dangerous, that vulnerability is a liability, that needing anyone makes you a target. You didn't choose to be a loner. You adapted to survive an environment where depending on people wasn't just uncomfortable, it was unsafe. And that adaptation saved you then. But it's running your life now. If you've ever wondered why you prefer being alone even when it hurts sometimes, this isn't about diagnosing you with something broken. This is about understanding what happened and why your response made perfect sense. Let's start with something nobody talks about. The mythology around loners is complete fiction. Popular culture sells this idea of the lone wolf archetype, the man who was just born different, naturally independent, genetically wired to prefer solitude. Movies show these characters as if they emerge from the womb not needing anyone. It's romantic. It's also bullshit. The psychological research tells a completely different story. John Bowlby spent decades studying orphans after World War II. These were kids who lost their parents, who grew up in institutions with minimal emotional connection. What he found changed psychology forever. These children didn't develop normal attachment patterns. They learned early that crying didn't bring comfort, that needing didn't bring provision, that people were fundamentally unreliable. So they stopped trying. They became what Bowlby called avoidantly attached, self-sufficient by necessity, not by nature. Mary Ainsworth expanded this research with something called the strange situation test. She'd bring a mother and infant into a room, then have the mother leave. Securely attached babies would cry, seek comfort when mum returned, then calm down. Avoidantly attached babies did something that looked almost eerie. They didn't cry when mum left. They didn't seek comfort when she returned. They just kept playing, seemingly unbothered. For years, psychologists thought these babies were exceptionally independent. Then they measured their stress hormones. The babies were terrified. They just learned that showing it didn't help, so they shut down. That's what we're really talking about when we talk about loners. Not men who were born preferring solitude. Men who learned that showing need was pointless or dangerous. And here's the part that'll hit you in the chest. Studies show that between 60 and 70% of adults with avoidant attachment experienced emotional neglect in childhood. Not dramatic abuse, not the kind of trauma that makes headlines, subtle neglect, the kind nobody talks about because it looks normal from the outside. Let me break down the 3 types of experiences that create this pattern. First, there's relational betrayal. This is the most obvious one. Your father promised to show up and didn't. Your mother was warm one day and cold the next with no explanation. Your best friend in elementary school turned into your bully in middle school. Your first real relationship ended with infidelity that shattered something fundamental in how you saw trust. The lesson burned into your nervous system was simple. People change. People leave. People hurt you. Better not to depend on them. Second, there's emotional neglect. This one's more invisible, which makes it more insidious. Your parents provided everything physical. Roof over your head, food on the table, clothes on your back. But emotional validation? 0. You'd come home from school upset and get told to stop being dramatic. You'd express fear and get told not to be weak. You'd reach for affection and get told you're fine. You don't need that. Toughen up. The message was clear. Your emotions are inconvenient. Your needs are burdensome. Better to not have any. This is especially brutal for boys. There's this pervasive cultural message that real men don't need emotional support. Don't cry. Don't feel too much. So when a boy reaches for emotional connection and gets shut down, he's not just being neglected, he's being trained to believe that masculinity means isolation, that strength means silence, that needing anyone is failure. The third type is the most damaging: punishment for vulnerability. This is when you actually do open up emotionally and you get destroyed for it. You cry in front of your father and he mocks you. You tell a friend you're scared and he spreads it around school. You show weakness and you get bullied mercilessly. The lesson isn't just that vulnerability doesn't get you help. The lesson is that vulnerability gets you hurt. And once you learn that lesson, you never forget it. Your nervous system won't let you. Now here's what's crucial to understand. None of this makes you weak. None of this makes you broken. Your brain as a child had exactly one job: survive. And if your relational environment was unsafe, your brain did what any intelligent system would do. It adapted. It learned. It protected you. Becoming self-sufficient wasn't a character flaw. It was brilliant survival strategy. The problem is that survival strategies that work in childhood often sabotage you in adulthood. Gabor Mate, who's probably done more to popularize trauma research than anyone, says something that applies here perfectly. He talks about addiction, but the principle works for any avoidant behavior. He says the question isn't why the addiction, it's why the pain. And the pain always comes from disconnection that happened too early to be remembered consciously. You're not addicted to being alone. You're avoiding the pain of connection. And that pain has roots you might not even remember. Alice Miller wrote about this in a book that should be required reading for every man: The Drama of the Gifted Child. The title's misleading. Gifted here doesn't mean academically talented. It means emotionally perceptive. Miller observed that some children become hyper-attuned to their parents' emotional needs. They learn to read the room before they can read books. They become little emotional managers, making sure everyone else is okay, while their own needs go completely unmet. She wrote, "The child has a primary need to be regarded and respected as the person he really is at any given time, and as the center of his own activity. Most boys never get that. They're not seen as who they are. They're molded into who they're supposed to be. Be strong, be useful, be successful. Don't be emotional. Don't be needy. Don't be too much or too little. Just be what we need you to be." So these boys develop what Miller called a false self, a performative version that gets approval, and the real self, the one with needs and fears and vulnerabilities, that self learns to hide, to go underground, to exist only in solitude where it's safe. That's what creates the adult loner. Not a man who naturally prefers being alone. A man who's been hiding his real self for so long that being alone is the only time he feels like he can breathe. The only time he doesn't have to perform. The only time he's safe from judgment, rejection, abandonment. Let's talk about what this looks like in adult behavior, because once you see these patterns, you can't unsee them. First, there's hyper-autosufficiency. This is when you refuse to ask for help even when you desperately need it. You learn every possible skill so you never have to depend on anyone. You fix your own car, cook your own meals, solve your own problems. When someone offers help, you reflexively refuse. The thought of accepting makes your skin crawl. That's not rugged individualism. That's trauma response. You asked for help as a kid and were ignored or mocked. Your nervous system learned that asking is dangerous. So even when help is freely offered by people who genuinely care, you can't accept it. The child inside you is still protecting you from a danger that no longer exists. Second pattern is constant loyalty testing. You have very few friends, but the ones you have been tested exhaustively. You create situations, often unconsciously, to see if they'll stay or leave. You push boundaries to see if they'll abandon you. It takes years before you fully trust anyone. That's not paranoia. That's pattern recognition. You were betrayed by someone who seemed trustworthy. Your brain learned that appearances deceive. So now you assume bad faith until proven otherwise exhaustively. A friend offers to help, and your first thought is, what does he want in return? You can't accept kindness without suspicion, because kindness in your childhood always came with conditions. The third pattern is intimacy phobia, and this needs clarification. It's not commitment phobia. You can commit to a relationship for years. What you can't do is go deep. You can date someone, live with someone, even marry someone while maintaining emotional distance. Your partner complains that you never really open up, that she doesn't know what you're thinking or feeling, that there's a wall she can't get through. And she's right, because you learned that people who really know you use that knowledge as a weapon. Your mother manipulated you with emotional information you shared. Your father mocked vulnerabilities you revealed. So adult you shares facts but not feelings. You tell stories but not fears. You maintain relationships at a depth that feels safe, which means a depth that isn't really intimate at all. The fourth pattern is preventive self-sabotage. You end relationships before they can end you. You push away people who are getting too close. You ghost when connection starts feeling real. Better to leave first than be left. Better to have the illusion of control than experience abandonment again. This one destroys more potential relationships than almost anything else. Because the better the connection, the more terrified you become. Higher stakes mean more to lose, so you burn it down before it can burn you. Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote the definitive book on trauma called The Body Keeps the Score, explains this perfectly. He says trauma is not what happens to you. Trauma is what happens inside you as a result of what happened to you. Your father leaving wasn't the trauma. The meaning you made of it, I'm not worthy of staying, that was the trauma. And you carry that meaning into every relationship. You sabotage not because you're self-destructive, but because you're confirming a belief you formed before you had language to question it. Now let's talk about why men specifically don't recognize this as trauma. There are 4 major barriers. First, we have an incredibly limited cultural definition of trauma. When most people hear trauma, they think war, sexual abuse, extreme violence. Emotional neglect doesn't register. A father who was physically present but emotionally absent doesn't count. A mother who provided materially but never validated feelings doesn't qualify. So men think, others had it way worse. I have no right to complain. They compare their invisible wounds to someone else's visible scars and decide theirs don't matter. Second barrier is toxic masculinity's greatest hit. The belief that men don't have emotional trauma. That real men just get over things. That dwelling on the past is weakness. So even when a man recognizes something damaged him, he buries it, doesn't process it, doesn't talk about it, just pushes it down and pretends it doesn't affect him. Except it does. It affects everything. His relationships, his career choices, his entire approach to being in the world. Third barrier is lack of emotional vocabulary. Boys aren't taught words for feelings beyond mad, sad, happy. So when an adult man experiences complex emotional pain, he doesn't have language for it. He feels something's wrong, but can't name it. I feel weird around people doesn't translate to I have relational trauma from childhood neglect. Without language, there's no recognition. Without recognition, there's no healing, just confusion and self-blame. Fourth barrier is pride in the adaptation. Many men are genuinely proud of their self-sufficiency. I became a man without anyone's help. I raised myself. I don't need anybody. There's a narrative of triumph there, and recognizing the traumatic roots threatens that narrative. It means admitting you weren't just strong and independent. You were hurt and protecting yourself. And for men whose entire identity is built on that strength story, that admission feels impossible. But here's what that cost you. First cost is loneliness within loneliness. You choose to be alone, but you're lonely anyway, because you're not alone by genuine preference. You're alone because connection feels dangerous. There's a massive difference between healthy solitude and traumatized isolation. Healthy solitude is, I choose to be alone because it renews me. Traumatized isolation is, I choose to be alone because people hurt me and I can't risk that again. The first comes from fullness. The second comes from fear. And you know which one you're living. You feel it every time you want connection, but can't let yourself have it. Second cost is permanently superficial relationships. You might have friends for 10, 15 years, but they don't really know you. They know facts about you, your job, your hobbies, your opinions on sports. They don't know your fears, your insecurities, your actual interior life. Because vulnerability feels like handing someone a weapon, so you perform a safe version of yourself. A version that can't be truly hurt, because it's not truly real, and you're loved for the mask, not the man, which means you're not actually loved at all, just tolerated. And when you're alone, you feel it. Nobody actually knows me, and you're right, because you won't let them. Third cost is inability to receive. You're probably excellent at giving support, terrible at receiving it. A friend offers help, you refuse. Your partner wants to take care of you, you get uncomfortable. A therapist validates your pain, you minimize it. Others have it worse. I'm fine, I don't need that. Receiving requires acknowledging need. Need requires vulnerability. Vulnerability triggers every alarm your nervous system has. So you stay in the role of giver, never receiver. And your relationships become one-directional. You support but aren't supported. Over time, people feel rejected by your refusal to let them in. They leave, confirming your original fear. The cycle perpetuates itself. Fourth cost is exhausting hypervigilance. You're constantly scanning for signs of betrayal, micro-analyzing every interaction. He didn't text back fast. Is he avoiding me? She spoke differently. Is she upset with me? You can't just be in a relationship. You're always monitoring threat levels. That's your amygdala, the brain's threat detector, working overtime. And it's working overtime because trauma taught it that relational threats are everywhere. Socializing isn't relaxing for you. It's work. Intense cognitive work. That's why you come home from social situations completely drained. Not because you're introverted, because you just spent 3 hours unconsciously tracking 47 potential signs of rejection. Fifth cost is self-sabotaging opportunities. A business partnership requires trust. You pass. An incredible woman is interested. You create distance. A friendship is deepening. You disappear. The better the opportunity, the more terrified you become. Because better means more to lose. Your trauma brain says, the higher the stakes, the worse the pain when it falls apart. So you opt out. You live below your potential, not because you're incapable, but because your nervous system won't let you risk it. Now here's what I need you to understand. Recognizing this doesn't mean you're obligated to become a different person. This isn't some therapeutic demand that you turn into an extrovert, join clubs, force yourself to trust everyone. You can recognize the traumatic origins of your behavior and still choose solitude. The difference is between reacting unconsciously and choosing consciously. Peter Levine, who developed somatic experiencing therapy, talks about trauma integration versus trauma cure. You don't cure trauma, you integrate it. Integration means the trauma loses control over you. You still have preferences shaped by it, but you choose consciously instead of reacting automatically. Let me show you what that looks like practically. Before integration, a friend cancels plans. Your automatic reaction is, he's avoiding me. I'm being abandoned. I need to cut him off before he cuts me off. You don't question this reaction. You just act on it. After integration, same situation. Friend cancels. First reaction still happens. He's avoiding me. But then there's a second reaction. That's my abandonment trauma talking. And then a third reaction. I'm going to check in with him before I assume the worst. You still feel the fear, but you're not controlled by it. You create space between stimulus and response. That space is freedom. Same with choosing solitude. Before integration, you're alone because people are dangerous. After integration, you're alone because you genuinely prefer your own company. Same behavior, completely different motivation. One is fear-based, one is value-based, and you can feel the difference in your body. Fear-based isolation never fully relaxes you. There's always underlying tension. Value-based solitude brings actual peace. Here's a diagnostic test. Imagine tomorrow you woke up without fear of betrayal, without fear of abandonment, without hypervigilance. Would you still choose to be a loner? If yes, it's genuine preference. If no, trauma's in control, and there's no moral judgment in either answer. But knowing which one it is changes everything. Integration also doesn't mean trusting everyone. It means developing discernment, learning to tell the difference between someone who's genuinely safe and someone who triggers your old patterns. The traumatized loner avoids everyone because he can't tell the difference. The integrated loner has 2 or 3 people he trusts deeply because he's learned how to identify safety. That's not coldness, that's wisdom. Brené Brown says something that applies here perfectly. If we share our story with someone who has earned the right to hear it, shame can't survive. The key phrase is earn the right. When you were a kid, you shared with people who hadn't earned it, who used it against you, who violated that trust. So adult, you stopped sharing entirely. Integration means learning that some people, very few but some, actually can hold your story safely. And sharing with them doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. Let me give you 5 signs you're integrating this instead of just reacting to it. First, you can identify your triggers. Before, you just got angry or withdrew without knowing why. After, you can say, this situation reminds me of when my father, or this feeling is what I felt when I was betrayed at 15. Recognition is the first step to choice. Second sign, selective vulnerability. Before, you were at extremes, either never opened up to anyone or overshared with everyone trying to find connection. After, you open up to 1 or 2 people who've proven over time that they're safe. Strategic vulnerability, not desperate vulnerability. Third sign, solitude brings peace instead of just relief. Before, being alone was relief from social danger. After, being alone is genuine enjoyment of your own company. The energetic quality is completely different. You can feel it. Fourth sign, you can say no without guilt or anger. Before, refusing someone came with defensive anger. Leave me alone, I don't need this. After, refusal is calm. That doesn't work for me right now, but thanks. Boundaries without emotional charge. Fifth sign, you can tolerate small disappointments without cutting people off entirely. Before, one failure meant permanent exile. After, someone disappoints you, and you can talk about it, reassess, potentially give another chance if appropriate. You develop relational nuance. Not everyone is perfectly safe or perfectly dangerous. Most people are somewhere in between, and you can navigate that. Here's what probably won't change. You'll likely always prefer having a few close friends over many acquaintances. You'll likely always need significant time alone to recharge. You'll likely never enjoy parties, crowds, or small talk, and all of that is completely valid. Integration doesn't mean becoming someone else. It means being yourself on purpose instead of by accident. If this is hitting you hard right now, if you're recognizing yourself in these patterns, I need you to know something. You're not broken. Your response to an unsafe environment was intelligent. It kept you alive. It got you to adulthood. Your nervous system did exactly what it was designed to do: protect you. The question now is whether that protection is still serving you or whether it's limiting you. And only you can answer that. This video isn't a prescription. It's not telling you how to be. It's explaining why you are the way you are. What you do with that information is entirely your choice. Maybe you integrate it and stay exactly as you are, just with more peace about it. Maybe you integrate it and open up slightly to a carefully chosen few. Maybe you recognize it and decide you're not ready to work on it yet, and that's fine too. There's no timeline, no should, no right way to process this. Here's what I want you to sit with. Think back. When was the moment you learned that needing people was dangerous? You might not remember consciously, but your body remembers. What was the moment you stopped asking for help? What happened that taught you vulnerability gets punished instead of met? You don't have to share this in the comments. You don't have to tell anyone, but acknowledge it to yourself. Because once you see it, once you really see it, you stop blaming yourself for your wiring, and you start understanding it. You didn't choose to have these experiences, but you can choose what you do with them now. You can keep reacting unconsciously, letting old fears run your present relationships. Or you can start responding consciously, making choices based on who you are now, not who you were forced to become then. The difference is subtle, but the impact is massive. You survived your childhood. That alone proves you're stronger than you think. Now, the question is whether you're ready to stop just surviving and start actually living. Not living according to someone else's definition. Living according to yours, whatever that looks like. You became a loner to survive. You can stay a loner to thrive. Just make sure it's a choice, not a wound. There's all the difference in the world between those two. Drop a comment if you want and tell me, when did you realize you stopped trusting people? What was the moment? I read every single one,